Welcome everybody to this panel. We are going to talk about the ex-situ conservation as a strategy to reverse the red, experience, achievements, and next steps. It's a pleasure to be with you today, here with some partners of these conservation strategies. We are going to share a presentation. Thank you. Next, please. It's a great pleasure to us to share some of the advances of the Survival Center in Argentina. That is a partnership with IUCN Conservation Species Commission. Our mission is to promote biodiversity conservation strategies in Argentina and Latin America by connecting key actors to strengthen local and regional capacities and promote the evaluation, planning, and implementation, that is the IUCN Species Survival Cycle, of these conservation actions in the region in order to achieve the reverse the red strategy. Next, please. So, as I told you, we are a center. We are one of the newest centers around the world, and we are looking for the way to strengthen our capacities, the professional capacity, NGOs, local organization, the government, in order to apply this conservation cycle, in order to be more effective to achieve our conservation strategies and goals, in order to conserve the species that are very endangered in our world. Next, please. For this, we are trying to order our work in three main axes of action. We are working in training and qualification. We are looking for flagship species in order to develop conservation projects, pilot projects in order to replicate it in other species around the world. And we are doing a strategy in order to position the ex-situ conservation in order to work in one plan approach strategy. So this is the main goal of this panel. We are talking about this ex-situ conservation strategy in order to achieve the IUCN guidelines for 2001 to 2045. 2021 to 2025. This is our plan that we are looking for to achieve these different goals in order to identify what are the ex-situ actions that are being carried out of the species in Argentina, socialize the degree of progress of these projects in order to improve them and to achieve more goals. We are going to promote a space of technical construction to identify needs and future ex-situ actions for this species, and we want to contribute to this conservation integration approach, because we know that the ex-situ should be a way to conserve species in the wild habitats. So for all these points, we are trying to promote intersectoral and multidisciplinary participation meetings with government agencies and other civil organizations, the academy, and stakeholders. Next, please. To start with this plan, we carry out a satellite event last year during the IUCN World Conservation Congress in Marsella. And our goal was to assess the relevance of ex-situ conservation strategies for certain species in Argentina, identifying the needs and outline future actions. For this meeting, we carry out this workshop with 50 specialists of 22 organizations. Next, please. And we did a diagnosis with these partners in order to understand the baseline of what we are doing. We asked about the knowledge about the ex-situ guidelines of IUCN, and we could find that a high percentage of these people know the ex-situ guidelines. But next, please. In this diagnosis, we identify what of these strategies we need to develop more. So we could find that we need proper training, we need, of course, economic resources, and experienced technical staff. So these points are the base in order to do the plan and to improve what we are doing in ex-situ conservation. Next, please. In order to these goals of the projects, we could find that we are working a lot with conservation of genetic resources, rescue and rehabilitation, and the third point was the maintenance of a viable ex-situ population. On the other hand, we have some rewilding actions and captive breeding for reintroductions. Next, please. So this workshop was very interesting because we have the opportunity to work with different partners in order to, with this information, with this baseline, how to work together in a plan. One of the most important results is that we have a consensus that we need to give continuity and revalue the contribution of the ex-situ conservation as part of integral approach. We need to create a collaborative space with a lot of sectors, with all the stakeholders that are part of these missions. And we need to develop a technical platform to identify needs and future actions in order to achieve the conservation of these species. Next, please. So this action plan has 3 points, three most important points that we consensus. One is to develop an official document with the prioritization of these species. The second one is to develop a single and integrated plan for the ex-situ strategy that include the communication component, because what we could find is that people, the community, doesn't know what is doing about the ex-situ point and what this institution that are working with the management of wild population in a controlled environment are doing. So we really need to have a focus there and work with the communities, with the people, in order to increase the knowledge about what we are doing. And the second one, the third one, is jointly strongest a construction of environmental citizen that is linked with the other point in an intersectoral manner. Organizations that are working in the government, with NGOs, the academy, and the people, we need to work together in order to ensure that the population has access to quality information for their decision and to gain support about what we are doing in ex-situ conservation. Next, please. So some of the progress that we have in this action plan is that last year was the first annual meeting of wildlife conservation, and the focus of this meeting, promoted by the Environmental Ministry of Argentina, was the ex-situ strategy in order to conservation. And the second very important progress is that we are working in the development of a capacity program that is strengthening technical and institutional capacities in the management of wildlife under human care for the conservation of biodiversity. And this program will be carried out for the governmental agencies in Argentina and NGOs that are working in conservation projects with animals that are under human care. Next, please. We really think we have the commitment that all these projects are very important, and for that reason, we are looking for some pilot projects that could be the light in order to plan good strategies. For that reason, today are with me three people that are leading projects that had very important ex-situ components in their conservation projects. So I want to share first a presentation with Federico Cacoliris. Federico is a senior researcher for the National Council of Scientific Researchers in Argentina, and he's leading this project of the Balcheta frog and other amphibian initiatives. Please share the presentation of Federico.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Federico Cacoliris. And in this presentation, I will talk about the conservation project of the Balcheta frog in Patagonia, Argentina. Next, please. In 2012, with a team of people, we created a working initiative and later an NGO called Fundación Samuncurá, with the goal of conserving the biodiversity of the Samuncurá Plateau, but with special focus on 3 endemic and highly endangered species: the Balcheta frog, the naked carasin, and the Samuncurá frog. Next, please. We applied the same approach for these 3 species, which was based on a classical conservation cycle and following these 3 key steps: assessment, planning, and action. Next, please. In the case of Alcheta frog, there was a previous assessment made by the IUCN in 2004 that listed this species as critical endangered. And this frog was also listed as among the top 100 edge amphibian species worldwide by the Zoological Society of London. Next, please. But because the previous assessment was old, we decided to make a reassessment to update the category of this species in the IUCN. And for this purpose, we conducted surveys covering the known range of the species, but also new localities. Next, please. During these surveys, we discovered new local populations of this frog, but we also realized that some previous known local populations went extinct in a short time frame of less than 20 years. Next, please. So we wondered why these local populations went extinct, and we found a strong relationship between a high pressure of livestock in some sites and the extinctions of frogs there. But then we wondered why the extant populations were so restricted to just a few portions of habitats, and why these frogs don't occur in the whole stream. Next, please. And this question was quite simple to answer and was related to the presence of this exotic predator, the rainbow trout, that was introduced in the stream in 1920 and thrived in almost all the stream. Next, please. But luckily, the existence of these natural waterfalls is still preventing the access of trout to the last habitats for frogs. Next, please. So, as a summary of this reassessment, we found there exists only 7 local populations of Alcheta frogs in the wild, and at least 3 of them went extinct. But these 7 local populations are very small and are isolated by rainbow trout. And moreover, in the last habitats that currently exist for these wild populations of frogs, where these frogs were affected to thrive, they are declining because of the impact of livestock. So with all this information, we reconfirmed the critical endangered category for the species in 2016. And next, please. As a conclusion of this reassessment, we decided to start planning conservation actions with the goal of the final goal of ensuring the long-lasting viability of the Alcheta frog. So for planning, we applied a logical framework approach that is based on the creation of a problems tree for the species, then this problem tree was turned into an objectives tree. And all this work resulted in an action plan for the Alcheta frog. And it's worth to mention that all this process was assisted by the IUCN Amphibian Specialist Group, the Amphibian Survival Alliance, and the Amphibian ARC. Next, please. So once we had the plan, we started conducting conservation actions by following an adaptive management approach. One of the main actions was the restoration of reproductive habitats for frogs by the creation of these enclosures that impede the access of livestock. Next, please. And here you can see a habitat before and after the creation of these enclosures, and how easily the habitat became fully restored and suitable again for frogs. Next, please. Another conservation action was based on the management of trout in the stream. For this aim, we increased natural waterfalls to create barriers to the access of trout to headwaters. Next, please. And then we removed the trout upstream to this waterfall. But once having a measure of the effort needed to remove trout, we realized that the problem of trout could be solved only in a middle-term time frame. Thus, the natural recolonization of frogs in these restored habitats was unlikely in the short term. And for this reason, we decided to build ex-situ facilities for these species with the goals of establishing a captive assurance survival colony of Valcheta frogs there and to breed and translocate frogs to restore habitats in the short term. All these activities are part of the recovery program for the species. Next, please. In 2016, we achieved the first successful reproduction of this species in ex-situ facilities. And after marking the froglets, next please, we were able to release them in restored habitats where previous local populations of the species went extinct. And next please. Further monitoring allowed us to record successful reproductive activity among the reintroduced frogs, and a year later we found the first frogs born in the wild, confirming the reestablishment of the local populations there. Yeah. Thank you. So this was the situation we found in 2012, and during this time, we applied most of our effort in the western tributaries of the stream. And by a combination of management actions, including habitat restoration, management of trout, and reintroduction of frogs, we achieved an increase of more than 5% of the whole metapopulation of the species. But we also achieved the restoration of more than 10 reproductive habitats that are now free of livestock, and also the recovery of more than 4 kilometers of stream that is now free of trout, allowing connectivity among local populations of frogs. Next, please. But we were also able to create and establish a protected area that effectively conserves the Valcheta frog, as well as other endemic species in the stream, like the naked carasin and 2 freshwater snails. And it is worth to mention that this is the first protected area in Argentina, created with the primary purpose of protecting an endangered amphibian species. But we are quite more ambitious and have a clear vision. We expect to increase the population of this species by 100% and restore the entire headwaters of the stream by 2013. And if we achieve this, we will ensure the long-lasting viability of the Valcheta frog. And we will also be able to downlist the species to a less threat category in agreement with the goals of the Reverse the Red program of the IUCN. Last, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Federico. Congratulations, this is an amazing project. Please, if you have any question, you can do it by the chat. And then at the end, we can share some of the questions and comments about our presenters. Our next presentation is for Alicia de la Colina. She is a PhD biologist, is a university professor, and she is a researcher specialist in Fundación Temaiken, and she's the leader of the Yellow Cardinal Conservation Project.
Thank you, Paula. Hello, everybody. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share with you our work about the reintroduction of yellow cardinal recovered from wildlife trafficking. Let me introduce the yellow cardinal, Gubernatrix cristata. It's a songbird endemic to southern South America. The male looks quite different from the female and the juveniles. It is monogamous and extremely territorial, defending its territory very aggressively. Argentina holds most of the population with 1,500 and 2,000 estimated individuals. Currently, this species is categorized as endangered because this population trend is declining and threats are not fully contained. In Argentina, populations are disconnected and 3 distinct management units could be genetically and behaviorally identified for the species. This is the work of a group of scientists who found that genetic differences are manifested even in their songs. So the main threats of the species is habitat loss due to agricultural activities and continuous extraction of individuals, mostly males, to stock the illegal cage bird market. So now there are a high number of animals confiscated but by wildlife authorities delivered to rescue centers. So in order to change this situation, the Yellow Cardinal Alliance has been established in 2017 with the support of the highest or more important wildlife authority in the country, the NGO Aves Argentinas, Fundación Temaiken, and the scientists from the academy from the University of Buenos Aires. This alliance has the main goal to prevent the extinction of the yellow cardinal, mitigating the impact of wildlife trafficking on the species, following the guidelines of the IUCN through the integral recovery of confiscated birds. We seek to reintegrate rehabilitated individuals into nature, to reinforce natural populations. Well, now over the years, and thanks to the creation of strong networks, there are many other institutions that participate in this alliance. Here you can see a diagram of the different stages that it takes to return a yellow cardinal to nature, where different government agencies, academic, technical, zoological, and civil society institutions work together, where each one plays a fundamental role in this comprehensive recovery process, which consists in this stage: confiscation of the birds, reception at the recovery center, who provides quarantine, health, and behavioral recovery, genetic assignment to its most likely population of origin, transfer and release in sites previously registered as suitable for the species, and finally, the released animals are monitoring or follow up with radio tracking in order to record survival and evidence of the reinforcement of the wild populations. And of course, at the same time, awareness campaign and education activities are carried on. So when we plan reintroductions, all members think and work on the factors that can affect the outcome of the success of the reintroductions. Some of these factors involve characteristics of the release sites, such as habitat suitability, threats, presence of an existing population, the recovery and translocation protocols, as handling, transport, etc., as well as the individual characteristics, such as health status, age and weather, time spent in captivity of released individuals. And an individual factor that has been gained attention in recent years is animal personality. So Alliance scientists studied how this individual factor may play a role in yellow cardinal reintroductions. This aspect of the health and behavioral recovery are those that are specifically work on Fundación Temaiken, because it is from our wildlife rescue center that we work on the rehabilitation of confiscated animals in general. And we have the mission to reintroduce wild fauna victim of emergency, muskotry, and trafficking. So at the GRET, this rescue center, we receive the confiscated animal, we put in quarantine, and how to see the video. Veterinarians perform clinical exams and treatment if necessary. The score is also measured and colored rings placed. We designed a health and management protocol, which includes taking blood samples for molecular analysis, and then conditioning or work on the behavior of the animal prior to release is a strategy used to improve the success of the researchers. This behavior work is based on exposing the animal under a controlled situation to threatening stimuli similar to the natural environment to indirectly predict the presence of predators. Then, after that, before going back to nature, we put a radio transmitter in each animal, and then we take the animals to the release sites, and we collaborate with the post-release monitoring. And that is the results since 2017. More than 120 animals recovered and returned to the wild with less than 30% loss due to the predation. So we can say that approximately 5% of the total natural population was restored. And we have a high record of couples and reproductive events after resertions. And here you have a picture, it's a very good picture. We love this picture because you can see here, trust on me, this is a male that it has a colored rings. This male was released in October 2020. And here you can see a family, his happy family, a couple and chicks. So after all this work, Yellow Cardinal Alliance can set a series of recommendations were built for the rescue and management of this species about, for example, every rescued animal is worth it. It's necessary to monitor each reinsertion events, and etc., etc. Well, all these recommendations that different members of the Alliance share in scientific and specific meetings. The main learning of the Yellow Cardinal Alliance is that these results show that thanks to collaborative and interdisciplinary work, a greater impact of actions for the conservation of wild species in the long term is achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Again, if you have some question, please share by the chat, and then we can do an exchange with the panelists. The next panelist is Pablo Siroski. He is the coordinator of the Wildlife Sustainable Management of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change in Santa Fe Province. He also led the Laboratory of Applied Molecular Ecology, and he is the chairman of the Crocodile Specialist Group for Latin America of the IUCN.
Hello. Can you hear me? Paula, can you hear me?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, for introducing me, and for giving me the chance to talk about the the crocodilian study cases of ex-situ conservation strategies. Just to okay. Just to mention some generalities about crocodilian, they belong to the order Crocodilia, so of course, and they are represented by three families: the crocodile, Crocodilidae, Alligatoridae, and Gavialidae. And there are 27 or 28 species and subspecies of crocodilians up to now, because this is changing every day or day by day, because there are a lot of molecular analyses that so many people are conducting, and this number of species is changing very, very often. They are distributed in 99 countries, from 1 to 6 species per country. In Latin America, we have the most diverse countries, specifically Colombia and Brazil. They have 5 or 6 species of crocodilian in every country, in that countries. The animals when they are adults, or some species measure 1.5 meters and other 6 meters. So the sizes of the crocodilian are very diverse and depend of every species. They live in different habitats. Some live in forests, other in some kind of wetlands, even in the sea. We have some species adapted to live and tolerates very high concentration of salts. When the crocodilians population were severely depleted, there were some coordinated effort to prohibit illegal trade, specifically from the 70s, and that generated a lot of positive results. Before that protection, most crocodilian species were considered endangered, and their population were significantly declining in both abundance and distribution. And now, approximately 60% are considered abundant and widespread, because of some actions related to conservation incentive created through protection actions, sustainable use, and obviously the stop or the reduction of the illegal trade. And in this sense, today, with quite different frames than before, there is still generalized is a kind of misconception that hunting and non-discriminate utilization are considered to be the main factors responsible for the decrease in wild species population all over the world. But in fact, the effect of the hunting are at least or lesser than before, the less important compared to the increased growth of habitat loss caused mainly by crops and the potential risk of indiscriminate use of pesticides, some deforestation, another kind of crops in over natural habitats, different kind of pollutions, and most often the modification of water courses. There are some other conflicts with domestic productions like fishings, the presence of introduction of exotic species, climate change, because we need to highlight that these species are ectothermic, and the impact of the global warming will be potentially of the great impact on these specific species. Still, we don't know what is the end of or which will be the impact of the global warming, because we know that we need more study about that. But the last and perhaps the most sorry, I'm hearing some noisy. That's okay?
Yes, we are listening perfect with you.
Okay, thank you. The last, perhaps the most important, is the constant increasing of human population. At the present, this slide that I show you, a video that I recorded last night, that is in a real time, in a real world, when how the human population is close than 8 billion of people. We can see the rhythm of growth, and so we need for that we need more food and other things to supply the population growth at the same time, no? Right? And this increase in population is usually associated with poverty, and the relationship between poverty and conservation has always been quite hard or difficult. So you can see how to build a different defense to protect human population in some habitat that exist as certain coexistence between humans and risky species, crocodilians, like the crocodilians is in this case. So how we can conserve crocodilians in in this context? We have to think about in two options. Protect of species, of course, but one alternative could be reduce the wild populations to live in a protected area. That this is quite difficult, and surely it doesn't give a very good results, because we can't create so many protected areas, or try to think in a management of the populations. At the moment, we have to think in management population. We need to take into account the perception of people who don't live with this species, and the perception is absolutely different than the people that live with this species, right? And the perceptions of the animals is absolutely different. In many parts of the world, crocodilians are endangered predators, and yeah, I think it doesn't make sense to emphasize the risk for people who attribute negative rather than positive value to them. There are always intentions to remove and to the move because it is a permanent risk, and the big challenge in this case is how we are going to conserve of manage the crocodilians in this context. The crocodilians management, sorry, is activity, or we call to the activities related to the intention to preserve them or obtain benefit from the populations. As most of you know, that crocodilian has economic value, other than doesn't have it. Other some receive some benefits for having the economic value, and on the basis that the ex-situ concepts that have a play an essential role when they don't have commercial value, because the sustainable use in crocodilian are developed quite well. Even there are some species are recovered after the implementation of a sustainable use program. But we are talking about the not this case. We are not talking about the commercial programs. We are talking about the ex-situ components to play an essential role for a species that they don't have commercial value. There's two kind of activities. One is the farming, for this case, to apply ex-situ concepts. One is the farming, which refers to the closed cycle breeding in captivity. So the breeding animal are maintained in captivity, of course, and the eggs and laid for the females, of course, in captivity. The eggs are collected and incubated artificially then, and the hatchlings are reared until the size to release them. That is a bit expensive, because the breeding animals are kept in captivity, and that is a practice not too frequent in terms of the amount of produced and reintroduced animal, but exist for some species. In Argentina, we have the other techniques, management techniques, that is called ranching. Every program that we have in Argentina for both species. In Argentina, it's important to mention that in Argentina we have two species of crocodilians. One is yacaré caiman, and the scientific name is caiman yacaré. And the other is broad-snouted caiman, and the scientific name is Caiman latirostris. After the recovery actions were implemented, especially for Caiman latirostris, was in a critical situation, and now both species in Argentina are not in danger after, yes, as I said before, the implementation of programs who consist called ranching, that consists in collect eggs, from the wild to raise them in the farm. A difference between farming and ranching, that the breeding reproductors are in captivity, and in ranching the breeders are in the wild. Sorry. One of the most important goal of the ranching is take advantage of the natural loss, because most of the nests are predated, burned, after even after the hatched, as you can see in the slide, are the species, the hatchlings also could be predated for some kind of birds. The crocodilians in general are a species with very high mortality ratio. If this technique is applied consistently, we collect the eggs as soon as possible, and we will decrease the percentage of mortality. These different steps of the ranching, that is the identification of nest by local people who receive money for this kind of work. Sometimes they collect the eggs, and sometimes the people from the program, as scientists mostly, collect the eggs. Then those eggs are transferred to the artificial incubator. One of the big challenge is where we get the money to pay for the eggs to the local people. That depends of the each program. Sometimes it comes from governments and other for NGOs, private, sorry. Sometimes for fundraising. There are different origins. Some photos for illustrate how are the nest, the wild nest, the work of local people. This is recorded by a drone. This is the collect. We have to mark the upper position of the eggs, because we have to maintain the position, because we have to kill the eggs if we rotate the original position. Another kind of transport. Other photos illustrating the collect eggs of Caiman latirostis in this case. This is the artificial incubator. It's the usual eggs marked. Well, after after the hatching, each animal is marked with a cut in a caudal scales, and then they are transferred to different pools designed to obtain the greatest growth as soon as possible, right? The feeding is some different kind of, there are so many kind of food. It depends what is the food you have available. And after the animals take a convenient size to avoid different predators, the animals are restocking in the place where the eggs came from. We try to involve the local people in the restocking actions. This is a measure of different information we take before, yes, before the releasing. And then we, it's quite often to do every year population surveys to know the impact of the restocking activities. Remember that each animal is marked, and that mark you can, it maintained or they maintain until or forever, or for their whole life. This is the number of nests that we that increased during those years, that showed the recovery of the population, the wild population. And there are a lot of associated research, different kind of research. Sometimes we try to involve the local people in those activities as well. Market with chips to monitor them sometimes when we got it. And the education activities are very important as well, even for schools. And in the last time, we decided to share the activities of this kind of program with the community and open the different actions for the people that come to enjoy specifically the hatching, sorry. Just to finish, I would like to say some general considerations. The wild population survive easily if the habitat is not damaged. Wild population, crocodilians population can recover quite well if the habitat is good. The coexistence between some species of crocodilian and human population is a big challenge. The conservation incentive improve livelihood and enhance the value of ecosystem. And to implement this kind of program, we need the support and the help of the government, because there are a lot of activities. If we don't have that support, that is impossible to do them. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you very much. So just to share some conclusions, and of course, all the panelists are invited to share your thoughts and other comments. What we could realize is that in these projects and what we are working on in this panel, the application of the species conservation cycle generates a greater impact of the projects. We could share some good practices on how they are working. On the other side, we can notice that these flagship pilots are very necessary and can be a strategy to replicate with other species on a larger scale, showing that this is a proof of what we are doing in conservation, and maybe to link with one of the last comments of Pablo, to increase the commitment of governmental agencies and the people that can had the last word in order to put resources and to put these themes in the public agenda. Beyond the institutional origin of the projects, we could see different approach here. The key to the sustainability of this project is the articulation between different stakeholders. And the last one, and this is my personal contribution here, is that the Species Survival Center initiative that we have now around the world could be and is in many places a catalyst to achieve all that we are talking. So please, Alicia, Pablo, Federico, if you have another point or comment to add, you can do it. And if we have some question, please feel free to open your mic. We have some minutes until finish this panel.
I think, Paula, that as you said, one of the most important challenge is when the authorities come to the project. I think it's a very difficult sometimes carry on some project with authorities. Is necessary. Authorities as a government agency, right? I think it's very difficult. Sometimes you have to move the animals, you have to manipulate and handle the animal, and I think it's all the permissions and the protocols that you have to complain is very difficult. But I think it's absolutely necessary when you have the authorities very involved in the project, and sometimes in these roles as a coordinator, more or less deeper involved in the coordination of the project. I think it's a very good way to keep in a very high and have very high impact with the species. I think it's the key to its sustainability in the articulation, right? With all the stakeholders. You need to have a government agency in your side, I think.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm totally agree. We can't do nothing, practically any activities into the wild if we don't have an agreement with the government and even the support. Maybe what I 100% sure that is the key of the success if you have the support of the government.
Thank you, Pablo. Alicia, if you could share the last. So thank you very much, everybody, to be with us today. Here is our contact information. And of course, we are here to continue improving all the different efforts that many institutions, specialists, and governments are doing in order to wildlife conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.